a notorious prison gang member secretly tips off the police about the exact location where a massive shipment of illegal weapons is about to take place. Within minutes, heavily armed officers surround the area, convinced they're about to take down one of the biggest gun deals in years. But nothing goes according to plan. As the operation unfolds, it becomes clear that someone is manipulating everyone involved, and the man behind it may have a far more dangerous plan than anyone could have imagined. The movie begins with Jacob Harlan, a successful stockbroker living a peaceful life in California with his wife Kate and their young son Joshua. He has a rewarding career, a loving family, and every reason to believe his future is secure. One evening, Jacob and Kate attend a party with close friends, where everyone spends the night eating, drinking, and celebrating. When it's time to leave, Jacob insists on driving everyone home despite having consumed several drinks. As they laugh and chat inside the SUV, Jacob briefly turns his attention away from the road. The crash kills one of his closest friends instantly, while the other survive with injuries. Although Jacob never intended to hurt anyone, the investigation quickly reveals he was driving under the influence. Prosecutors charge him with DUI manslaughter, along with causing serious bodily injury. His attorney warns him that taking the case to trial could leave him behind bars for several years, so he recommends accepting a plea agreement instead. Kate refuses to give up and even suggests selling their home to hire better lawyers, believing they can still fight the charges. Jacob disagrees. Since his decision to drink and drive led to his friend's death, he accepts responsibility and pleads no contest. The court sentenced him to prison, and for the first time in his life, Jacob is separated from everything he has worked to build. Upon arriving at the California Institution for Men, Jacob immediately realizes prison operates under an entirely different set of rules. His head is shaved, his belongings are taken away, and he's assigned a bunk inside a crowded dormitory filled with violent offenders. That very night, he witnesses several inmates cornering a frightened newcomer before sexually assaulting him, while everyone else remained silent. The guards never interfere. Watching the attack unfold, Jacob understands that showing fear inside prison is the fastest way to become someone's next victim. The following morning, inmates are escorted into the recreation yard, where every race keeps to its own group. Jacob quietly observes the prison's unwritten rules until another inmate deliberately bumps into him. Hoping to intimidate the newcomer, rather than backing away, Jacob immediately fights back. The confrontation quickly turns violent before correctional officers storm in and separate them. Both men are dragged away, and Jacob is sentenced to 30 days in solitary confinement for fighting. Although the punishment is harsh, the incident earns him something even more valuable. Several influential inmates notice that the new prisoner refused to be bullied. Among them is Bottles, one of the leaders of the white prison gang. Shortly after Jacob finishes his time in solitary, another gang member approaches him and arranges a meeting with Bottles. Bottles gets straight to the point. He explains that nobody survives prison alone. Every inmate belongs to a racial organization, and anyone without protection eventually becomes a target. If Jacob joins the gang, he'll receive protection, but in return, he'll be expected to follow orders without question. Knowing he has little choice if he wants to stay alive, Jacob accepts the offer and officially becomes part of the organization. Outside prison, life continues falling apart for his family. During a visitation, Kate tells Jacob that the family of the friend who died in the crash has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against them. Their savings are disappearing, and she's considering abandoning college to work full-time and support Joshua. Jacob refuses to let her sacrifice her future. He encourages her to finish earning her degree and tells her to use the equity in their house to fight the lawsuit. Although he tries to sound optimistic, both of them realize prison is changing their lives in ways they never imagined. Back inside, Jacob begins proving himself to the gang. His first assignment is transporting heroin across the prison yard without being caught by correctional officers. To avoid detection, he hides the drugs inside his body before walking calmly through multiple security checks. From that moment on, Jacob earns the gang's trust and begins receiving increasingly dangerous responsibilities. Not long afterward, Bottles informs Jacob that one of the inmates has been passing information to prison staff. The gang believes the man is a snitch, and the only acceptable punishment is death. Jacob freezes after hearing the order. Before prison, he had never even been involved in serious violence, let alone murder. Refusing the assignment, however, would immediately turn the gang against him and leave him completely unprotected. With no safe alternative, Jacob follows another gang member into the prison yard where they corner the suspected informant. Before the inmate can react, Jacob repeatedly stabs him until he collapses to the ground. Guards rush toward the scene, but by then the attack is over. The killing permanently changes Jacob. Crossing that line strips away the last pieces of the ordinary family man he once was. From then on, prison begins reshaping him completely. He spends his days lifting weights, following the gang's orders, and earning respect through violence. His beard grows longer, tattoos begin covering his body, and inmates stop seeing him as the frightened stockbroker who first entered prison. Instead, they now recognize him as someone willing to do whatever survival demands. As Jacob rises through the gang's ranks, word spreads that tensions between rival prison organizations are reaching a breaking point. Several senior members quietly prepare for a coordinated riot, and every loyal member is expected to participate. While getting another tattoo, Jacob admits he'd rather avoid the conflict, but the others immediately reject the idea. Loyalty comes before everything else. Anyone refusing to fight becomes an enemy to his own people. One gang member offers Jacob a final piece of advice. If violence breaks out, stay away from the surveillance cameras, because prison officials use recorded footage to hand out additional years behind bars. Eventually, the day arrives. Without warning, rival gangs attack each other across the prison yard using homemade knives, sharpened metal, and anything they can turn into a weapon. Jacob joins the fight alongside Bottles and the rest of the gang. During the chaos, he notices Bottles being overwhelmed by another inmate. Knowing the gang leader's death would also seal his own fate, Jacob rushes forward and repeatedly stabs the attacker until he dies. Seconds later, heavily armed correctional officers flood the yard and force every inmate onto the ground. As Jacob lies face down waiting to be restrained, he slowly turns his head toward one corner of the yard. A surveillance camera is pointed directly at him. Only then does he realize the murder has likely been recorded, and instead of getting closer to freedom, he may have just added years to his sentence. The surveillance footage of the prison riot is presented in court, leaving Jacob with no way to deny what happened. The video clearly shows him stabbing another inmate to death during the fight. Kate watches in disbelief as the man she married appears on the courtroom screen covered in tattoos and prison clothing, looking nothing like the successful stockbroker who accidentally landed behind bars. Because of the murder and his involvement with the prison gang, the judge adds 9 more years to Jacob's sentence, destroying any hope of him returning home anytime soon. After the hearing, Jacob realizes there's no point pretending things will ever go back to normal. Before prison, he believed he could serve his sentence and rebuild his life with his family, but now he understands that version of himself no longer exists. Rather than forcing Kate and Joshua to wait for someone who may never come home, he tells them to forget about him and move on with their lives. Although Kate refuses to accept his decision, Jacob cuts off all contact, believing it's the only way to protect them from the violent world he has become part of. Jacob is soon transferred to Corcoran State Prison, a maximum security facility reserved for California's most dangerous inmates. The atmosphere is even harsher than his previous prison, with every movement controlled by armed guards, and every inmate already affiliated with powerful criminal organizations. Shortly after arriving, Jacob learns that the prison is controlled by a respected gang leader known as Redwood, but even Redwood answers to someone else. That man is the Beast. Although the Beast is locked away in an isolated security unit, he continues running the organization's operations both inside and outside prison. Through corrupt guards and loyal gang members, every order he gives is carried out without question. His influence stretches far beyond prison walls, and even experienced criminals treat his name with respect. Jacob quickly decides that if he wants to survive long-term, he needs the Beast's trust. Instead of waiting for an introduction, he deliberately starts a violent fight with another dangerous inmate, knowing word of the incident will eventually reach the gang's leadership. His gamble works. Impressed by Jacob's willingness to risk himself, the Beast orders a corrupt correctional officer named Roberts to bring Jacob into one of the secure cages for a private meeting. When the two finally meet, the Beast studies Jacob carefully before explaining how the organization operates. Prison is only one part of the business. The real money comes from the gang's criminal network on the outside, and everyone who earns a high rank is expected to continue working even after leaving prison. Loyalty isn't temporary. Once someone reaches the top of the organization, they're committed for life. Instead of threatening Jacob, the beast rewards him. He promotes him to a higher position within the gang and places him in charge of important operations. Jacob accepts without hesitation because he knows refusing isn't an option. By now, prison has completely changed the way he thinks. Every decision is based on survival rather than morality. Years pass, and Jacob becomes one of the most respected members of the organization. His sentence is eventually reduced because of good behavior inside prison, bringing him closer to release. But, just as freedom finally seems possible, the beast delivers another order. The gang has arranged a massive weapons deal with the Serenos, and Jacob will oversee the entire operation after his release. Jacob immediately objects. He only wants to leave prison quietly and disappear forever, but the beast calmly reminds him that nobody walks away from the organization. If Jacob refuses, his wife and son will become targets. Faced with an impossible choice, he agrees to handle the deal, knowing he's being forced back into crime before even stepping outside the prison gates. The night before his release, Jacob writes a heartfelt letter to Joshua. Instead of promising to come home, he encourages his son to grow into a better man than he ever became. He wants Joshua to remember the father he knew before prison, not the criminal he's become. After finishing the letter, Jacob quietly folds it and waits for morning. The following day, prison officials finally process his release. Before Jacob walks out, a corrupt guard secretly shakes his hand and slips him a note containing instructions from the beast. Even outside prison, the organization is already watching his every move. For the first time in years, Jacob steps back into the outside world. Waiting for him is Shotgun, a former inmate who now works for the gang on the streets. Along with several other members, Shotgun welcomes Jacob home and immediately starts discussing the upcoming weapons deal. Jacob barely has time to enjoy his freedom before he's pulled straight back into organized crime. That evening, the gang celebrates his release at a party. Jacob keeps his guard up throughout the night, sensing that something doesn't feel right. His instincts prove correct when gunfire suddenly erupts inside the building. Everyone dives for cover as bullets tear through the room. Jacob manages to escape with another gang associate named Howie, and the two speed away before police officers arrive. During the drive, Jacob questions Howie about his loyalty. Unlike the others, Howie has never been to prison and still has a chance to live a normal life. Jacob warns him to stay away from unnecessary violence and only follow his instructions during the upcoming operation. Howie agrees, unaware that the job he's about to join could change his life forever. Unknown to Jacob, his release has already attracted the attention of Ed Kutcher, a determined parole officer who has spent years investigating the gang's criminal network. Intelligence reports suggest Jacob will soon participate in a major weapons transaction, making him the perfect opportunity to reach the people running the organization from behind bars. Kutcher immediately places Jacob under surveillance. Meanwhile, Jacob meets with Herman Gomez, a powerful Serenos representative responsible for receiving the weapon shipment. The two discuss the upcoming exchange and agree that everything must happen exactly as planned. Any mistake could start a war between the gangs or bring law enforcement directly to them. Later, Jacob finally visits Kate. Years have passed since they last saw each other properly. Kate has built a new life, working long hours to support Joshua while raising him alone. Jacob quietly hands her an envelope filled with cash, hoping it will make life easier for them. Kate immediately refuses, believing the money came from criminal activity. She also confronts him about the letter he sent Joshua before leaving prison, saying it sounded like a goodbye from someone expecting to die. Jacob doesn't argue. Instead, he simply tells Kate to stay away from him. He explains that as long as he's connected to the organization, anyone close to him remains in danger. Walking away from his family hurts more than prison ever did, but he believes keeping his distance is the only way to protect them. As Jacob leaves, he realizes that although prison has finally released him, the gang never will. After leaving Kate, Jacob throws himself into preparing the weapons deal ordered by the beast. He knows refusing the assignment would immediately put his family in danger, so his only option is to finish the job while looking for a way to end the beast's control over his life. He reunites with Herman Gomez and the remaining gang members to finalize the operation, making it clear that everything must go exactly according to plan. Meanwhile, parole officer Ed Kutcher continues building his case against the organization. He already suspects Jacob is coordinating the shipment and places him under constant surveillance, hoping he'll eventually lead investigators to the gang's leadership. Jacob gathers everyone involved in the operation at a local bar. On the surface, everything appears organized, but Jacob carefully watches Shotgun throughout the meeting. His behavior feels different, confirming Jacob's growing suspicion that someone is leaking information. Instead of confronting him immediately, Jacob decides to follow him. The following morning, Jacob and Howie meet for breakfast to discuss the shipment. During the conversation, Howie reveals that while serving in Afghanistan, he discovered an abandoned military warehouse filled with thousands of assault rifles and other weapons. Instead of reporting the discovery, he secretly memorized the location and later contacted Shotgun after leaving the military. Together, they plan to sell the weapons on the black market for millions of dollars. Jacob quietly listens to the entire story, realizing just how valuable the shipment really is. Not long afterward, Kutcher calls Jacob in for a routine parole meeting. He asks whether Jacob attended the party that ended in gunfire the previous night. Jacob calmly denies everything and even produces a hotel receipt proving he was somewhere else. Although Kutcher doesn't believe the story, he has no evidence to prove otherwise and reluctantly lets him leave. Before Jacob walks out, Kutcher hands him a phone number and tells him to call if he ever wants a way out. After the meeting ends, Jacob secretly tails Shotgun through the city until he watches him meet with Kutcher and several officers. Hidden from view, Jacob overhears enough to confirm his suspicions. Shotgun has been working with law enforcement all along. Kutcher wants him to wear a recording device during the weapons exchange so officers can identify everyone involved. Shotgun hesitates, fearing the gang will kill him if he's exposed, but Kutcher pressures him into cooperating by threatening to prosecute him instead. Eventually, they compromise by placing a tracker on his phone while promising to protect him after the operation. Jacob quietly leaves before anyone notices him. At that moment, he abandons the Beast's original plan and begins creating one of his own. The next morning, Kate unexpectedly visits Jacob's apartment with Joshua. She tells him she finally accepted the money because their son deserves a better future. Joshua immediately runs toward his father, hoping they'll finally become a family again. He asks Jacob to come home, insisting they can face whatever problems lie ahead together. Hearing his son's words nearly breaks him, but Jacob refuses. He tells Joshua that staying away from him is the only way he'll ever have a normal life. "You've done your time now. Let us help you get back on your feet." "You want to help me?" "Yeah, I do." "Then stay away." Once they're gone, Jacob begins preparing for what he believes will be his final mission. He tears apart his bed sheets to make a rope, removes the bathroom window, and quietly escapes from his apartment without alerting the officers watching the front entrance. After climbing down the building, he disappears into the city before anyone realizes he's gone. Jacob's first stop is Howie's house. He asks to borrow an unregistered vehicle for the operation, claiming he wants to personally pick up Shotgun the following morning. Completely trusting Jacob, Howie agrees and even gives him Shotgun's home address. Before leaving, Howie admits he never wanted to become part of the gang. He only wanted enough money to start over somewhere else. Jacob tells him to stay focused because everything will be over soon. Meanwhile, Kutcher organizes a large tactical operation. Based on the information provided by Shotgun, SWAT teams prepare to intercept the shipment the moment the exchange begins. Officers spread across the city waiting for to make his move, convinced they're finally about to dismantle one of California's largest prison gangs. Early the next morning, Jacob stops at a hardware store and purchases several items, including a hunting knife. From there, he drives directly to Shotgun's house. Inside, Shotgun waits for instructions from Kutcher while believing he's completely safe. Hearing a knock at the door, he grabs his pistol before Jacob identifies himself from outside. Relieved, Shotgun lowers his weapon and unlocks the door. The moment it opens, Jacob lunges forward. He repeatedly stabs Shotgun before the man has any chance to defend himself. Even after Shotgun collapses, Jacob continues the attack until he's certain the informant is dead. Without wasting a second, he picks up Shotgun's phone and sends the exact location of the upcoming weapons deal directly to it before leaving the device beside the body. After murdering Shotgun, Jacob leaves the house before anyone notices him. He knows Kutcher has been monitoring the informant, so finding the body is only a matter of time. Sure enough, officers soon arrive at the house and discover Shotgun lying dead on the floor. While searching the scene, Kutcher notices Shotgun's phone and checks the latest messages. One of them contains the exact coordinates for the upcoming weapons exchange. Believing Shotgun managed to send the information before dying, Kutcher immediately alerts SWAT teams and orders every available unit to move toward the location. Meanwhile, Jacob sticks to the original plan and meets the remaining gang members as though nothing has happened. When they ask where Shotgun is, Jacob casually tells them he stopped by the house earlier, but nobody answered the door. One of the gang members repeatedly calls Shotgun's phone, but Kutcher deliberately ignores the incoming calls to avoid exposing the investigation. Since they can't wait any longer, the crew decides to continue without him. Jacob carefully inspects the shipment and confirms that the rifles came from Russian military stock, making them almost impossible to trace. Satisfied that everything matches the agreement, the gang loads the weapons into a transport vehicle before leaving for the meeting point with the buyers. During the drive, Jacob quietly asks Howie what time it is. The question seems harmless, but it's part of a plan only he understands. A few moments later, he turns on a cell phone that had remained switched off the entire day. Unknown to everyone else, police have been trying to trace that exact phone ever since the coordinates were sent. The instant it reconnects to the network, investigators receive a live signal. But Jacob isn't. Instead of allowing the police to guess where he is, he deliberately sends another signal revealing the exact location of the deal. The trap is now set. A short distance later, Jacob orders the convoy to stop. He tells the others to continue transporting the weapons while he takes Howie down another road. Believing Jacob has spotted surveillance, Howie follows without questioning him. Once they're alone, Jacob suddenly points a pistol at him and demands the truth. Terrified, Howie finally admits he lied from the beginning. He never found 1,000 rifles. He found 2,000. Half of the shipment had been hidden at another location without anyone else's knowledge because he planned to sell them later for himself. Jacob forces him to reveal the address before ordering him out of the vehicle. Although frightened, Howie obeys. Jacob takes control of the car, destroys any evidence linking Howie to the operation, and heads back toward the convoy alone. Not long afterward, the gang reaches the meeting point where Herman Gomez and the buyers are already waiting. Suitcases filled with cash are exchanged while everyone carefully inspects the weapons. After confirming the shipment, the buyers hand over nearly $1 million. Seconds later, police sirens echo across the area. SWAT vehicles surround the warehouse from every direction as heavily armed officers storm the scene. A massive gunfight immediately breaks out. Gang members dive behind vehicles while officers return fire from armored positions. Unlike the others, Jacob barely resists. Instead, he calmly watches the operation collapse exactly as he planned. One by one, the surviving gang members surrender while police move in to secure the scene. Jacob is arrested alongside the others without revealing that he deliberately led law enforcement to the deal. Watching from a distance, Howie quietly slips away before officers notice him, escaping the violence completely. A few days later, Kutcher sits across from Jacob inside an interrogation room. He knows Jacob orchestrated the entire operation, but he still believes there's one person they haven't reached: the Beast. Kutcher offers Jacob a deal. If he agrees to testify against the Beast and expose the organization's leadership, prosecutors will dramatically reduce his sentence. Jacob refuses without hesitation. He knows the Beast's reach extends far beyond prison walls, and the moment he cooperates with authorities, Kate and Joshua will become targets. Kutcher raises the offer even further, promising Jacob complete freedom if he helps dismantle the organization once and for all. Jacob still refuses. He explains that freedom means nothing if his family dies because of it. With no agreement reached, prosecutors move forward with the case. Thanks to the failed weapons deal, Jacob is sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. As officers escort him back toward prison, he never once complains about the sentence, because returning to prison has been part of his plan from the very beginning. Before leaving county jail, Jacob secretly hides 2 small items inside his body: a handcuff key and a razor blade. He knows prison searches are thorough, but he also knows exactly how to get the weapons past security without being discovered. Soon afterward, he's transported back to Corcoran State Prison. Inside the prison, news of the failed deal spreads quickly. The Beast immediately realizes Jacob ignored his orders and deliberately destroyed the operation. When Jacob is finally brought into the exercise cages, the Beast wastes no time confronting him. He reminds Jacob that the organization never forgives betrayal and calmly describes how his men will murder Kate and Joshua before eventually killing Jacob himself. Every word confirms exactly why Jacob returned instead of accepting Kutcher's offer. The guard finishes unlocking the cages and prepares to escort Jacob away. That's when Jacob makes his move. "Okay, easy, money. You knew they'd put you back here to get to me. Well played. Nobody's touching my family. We're going to get a few things straight here. So I could give about additional time. I'm already doing life, but I'm not sitting on death row. So you write it up that he attacked me with the blade first. In return, Jacob promises he'll be rewarded once the organization accepts its new leader." The guard understands exactly what Jacob is offering. With the Beast dead, someone has to take control of the organization, and Jacob is now the only man capable of filling that position. The official investigation eventually concludes that Jacob acted in self-defense during the confrontation. Although he remains sentenced to life without parole, the beast's death completely changes the balance of power inside the prison. Word spreads quickly through the gang that their former leader is gone, and Jacob has taken his place. Meanwhile, Kutcher receives news that the beast has been killed. At first, he struggles to understand why Jacob rejected freedom only to return to prison and commit another murder. Moments later, he receives an anonymous message containing the location of the remaining hidden weapons that Howie revealed before the failed deal. Realizing Jacob intentionally left the information behind, Kutcher immediately leads officers to the location. They recover the rest of the illegal weapons, preventing them from ever reaching the streets. Only then does Kutcher finally understand Jacob's entire plan. Jacob never intended to escape his past. He sacrificed himself to eliminate the beast, protect his family forever, and destroy the gang's largest weapons operation at the same time. Sometime later, Jacob receives a handwritten letter from Joshua. His son tells him that he and Kate are doing well and that they both forgive him for everything that happened. Joshua promises to grow into a good man, just as his father always wanted. Reading those words, Jacob becomes emotional for the first time in years. He looks at an old photograph of Kate and Joshua, remembering the ordinary life he once had before a single mistake changed everything. Although he'll never leave prison again, Jacob finally finds peace knowing his family is safe, free from the organization that once controlled every part of his life. His story serves as a reminder that one reckless decision can destroy an entire future. Jacob entered prison as an ordinary businessman, expecting to serve a short sentence. Instead, survival forced him into a violent world where every choice carried devastating consequences. In the end, he gave up his freedom permanently so his wife and son could live theirs. That's all for today's movie recap. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another movie recap. Also, let us know in the comments which movie you'd like us to recap next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.